Hi everyone, I'm Hans and I own 13 properties in the south of Germany. In this series, I walk you through each one. What went well, what did I learn, and more importantly, what didn't go according to plan, so you can avoid the same mistakes. This video is about my second ever investment property, a compact apartment in Freiburg, located in a large residential complex, close to the city center. Now, this deal has a bit of a story to it. If you've seen my first video of this series, you know my very first property was in the same building. A few months later, the same broker who sold me this first unit called me up and asked whether I would buy a second unit, which hasn't been on the market at that point. The second unit also included a parking space and was offered to me for 95,000 euros. In addition, it's not facing the main road on which my first property is. On the contrary, it's on the other side of the building, facing not the road, but rather other buildings and a couple of trees. So it's much more pleasant to look outside. When she called me, I didn't even have to think twice. I said yes immediately. The price was very strong, the setup was better than the first unit, and this was clearly an off-market opportunity that I didn't want to miss. If you've seen the first video of this series, you know that other units in this building are being sold for 145,000 euros, including a parking space. And since I knew that already, I immediately said yes to this deal. Having signed the notary contract, I knew that I'd be making more than 50,000 euros on this deal, and that I'd be stupid if I wouldn't take it. And here's the funny part. To this day, I've never seen the apartment in person. This is not something I would recommend to you, of course, especially if you're like a first-time buyer or just getting started with real estate. Definitely go have a look at the apartment, check it out in person to make sure everything's all right. But since I trusted the realtor in this case, since I also got a couple of pictures, I knew what the property is like, in which condition it is, and what I would have to renovate, let's say in the next 5 to 10 years. Overall, the numbers made sense. The tenant was already in place, renting the apartment, the paperwork was clean, so I went ahead without needing to visit the apartment myself. And so far that has worked out fine. Now, this is what the property looks like. You can see it looks pretty similar compared to the other one, which I've already shown you. So this is basically the setup, right? This is the ground floor. You step in here, then you have the bathroom, and on the opposite side you do have the small kitchen area, and then it's basically just one room, right, where you have to set up the bed, some sort of chairs or the table, and also some closets, of course. Then you have also with each of the units a small balcony, and then also some storage space here on this balcony. This is again just another representation of what I just described, and you can see down here all of the individual units, right? As I said, it's like, I think it's 100 units in this building. This is what it looks like from the outside, so it's in really good shape, I would say. There's even a small river going through it underneath it. That's what the entrance looks like, and this is what it looks like from the inside. Nothing special. And then this apartment, as I said, is very similar, looks almost identical to the other units, right? It has the same flooring. It's probably vinyl flooring. The windows got renovated I think like 5 to 10 years ago, so they're in perfectly good shape as well. And then, as I said, this unit faces not the road but the opposite side, meaning you do have a nice view outside. Here there's some construction work going on at that time when the picture was taken, so that's all gone now. But that's basically it. As I said, just one room. You do have the small kitchen area, which is okay. It's obviously not too nice. That's something that may be renovated in the next couple of years. You can also see the small fuse box here on the right side. This one is also partly outdated, so I will need to do that, or will want to do that. Renovate this whole fuse box at some point in the next couple of years. And then also the new flooring or tiles down here in the kitchen area, but also in the bathroom. This is the balcony of this unit, right? As I said, it's now facing the other way. So that's really nice as well. And that's also what, similar to all of the other units in this building, they basically all of the bathrooms basically all look the same, right? So this I will probably renovate, I would say maybe in year 6, year 7 after having bought this property, to then renovate this property, make use of all of the tax benefits, meaning deducting all of the expenses in year 6 or year 7, to then sell the property with an increased value, right, since I renovated it, tax-free after 10 years. And then here you can also see some more storage space. This is basically just like a hidden room on the balcony outside, and that's what it looks like. But now let's go through the numbers. The apartment is 25.66 square meters, built in the early 1980s, and also, as I said previously, located in a building with over 100 student apartment units. This apartment, however, also includes a parking space, which is a huge plus in a city like Freiburg. The purchase price overall was 95,000 euros. The tenant currently pays 476 euros in cold rent on a monthly basis for the apartment, plus 50 euros for the parking space. So the total cold rent is then 526 euros per month. With operating costs at about 110 euros per month, warm rent comes to 636 euros. And that's actually a pretty decent, maybe even cheap level for an apartment with a parking space in Freiburg. Now let's talk about the financing part. I financed the full purchase price, meaning the 95,000 euros, with my local bank. The interest rates accumulated to 5.05%, which is rather high, right? Especially compared to the current level of 3.75%. And the reason for this higher interest rate is actually that I fixed the interest rate level only for 3 years and not for 10 years or more. And I will tell you in a second why I chose to do that. The repayment rate of the loan accumulates to 1.5% per year, and that leaves me with a monthly bank rate of 507 euros. You may be wondering why I only chose a 3-year fixed interest term instead of something safer like 10 years. The reason was I was speculating on falling interest rates, and that turned out to be correct. Since then, the interest rates in Germany have already started to drop. As I said, we're now at a level of, let's say, 3.75% if you finance the property for up to 5 years, and that puts me in a strong position whenever I have to refinance this loan in 2026. Right now, the cash flow is slightly negative at around 55 euros per month. But since I also set up this so-called Staffelmietvertrag, the rent will automatically increase this year, which will likely push it into almost cash flow positive territory. So, in summary, what went well? The purchase price was excellent, especially since it had a parking spot with it. To me, I estimate that the property is worth around 145 to 150,000 euros. Next, this apartment is located, as I said, not facing the road, but rather facing the other side of the building, an upgrade from my first unit. Next, I didn't invest a single euro in renovation or initial setup. Of course, I paid for the closing costs myself, but the unit was in a good condition and already generating income. Most importantly, I used 100% bank financing, keeping most of my own equity for future investments. What didn't go so well with this deal? The interest rate was high at the time I bought it, and while my refinancing bet is paying off, it still adds a layer of risk I need to monitor. And that's pretty much it, right? I'm really happy with this deal overall. This obviously doesn't happen every day, but if I'm being offered such a good deal, I'll immediately take it, and I would do so over and over again. Now, in this case, I think I just got really lucky, right? The broker seemed to like me, and she obviously knew as well that it's worth a lot more. However, I think she really didn't want to deal with the hassle of having to put it online, then doing all of the viewings. So she rather just called me up since she knew that I'd buy the property anyways. All in all, this property strengthened my confidence and showed me the power of relationships, especially with brokers. It also confirmed that with solid due diligence, you don't always need to see a property in person to make a good investment. Would I do a similar deal again? Absolutely, especially now that I know how to assess these micro units and structure the financing strategically. And that's it for this walkthrough. If you're enjoying this series, let me know in the comment section below. Also, of course, subscribe to this channel. I'll be sharing more properties soon, including some with bigger renovations stories and lessons learned the hard way. One closing remark, I'm really trying to make this channel a little bit bigger and to grow this community of expats and also people from different countries trying to invest in Germany. If you find this channel helpful, then please share it with friends. Make sure that they subscribe to this channel to really get this channel growing. Thanks so much for your support, and thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Take care. Bye.